Hello, and welcome back to the ManageEngine Insights Podcast. I'm John Donegan, an enterprise analyst here at ManageEngine, and I'll be your host. Today, we're pleased to be sitting down with former NASA astronaut Mike Massimino. Mike served as a NASA astronaut from 1996 to 2014. He's a four-time spacewalker who completed 2 missions to the Hubble Space Telescope, including the final servicing mission, which is widely considered to be the most complex and dangerous in all of space shuttle history. Mike has BS from Columbia, as well as a PhD from MIT. He currently teaches at Columbia University as well. He's an advisor at the Intrepid Museum in New York. He's a frequent expert television commentator. He is the first person to ever tweet from space, and he's had a recurring role on the hit TV series, The Big Bang Theory. We're super excited to sit down here with Mike on the ManageEngine Insights Podcast. So Mike, one thing I really appreciated about you, when you were at MIT, when you were at Columbia studying industrial engineering and mechanical engineering, is that you always wanted to be involved with the human aspect. You have this kind of like humanistic perspective. I'm wondering, are engineers that don't consider human factors doing themselves a disservice, or would you say you kind of need engineers who are like you that are super focused on the human component of designing these tools, and also people who are more just interested in like the math or the non-human component?
I think you need everybody. I think if one of the class that I teach now at Columbia, I'm on the faculty there. I'm currently teaching aerospace human factors engineering, and it's more or less what you described, that if you're going to be designing something that's going to be used by a person, whether it's a television camera or an automobile or a spaceship, aircraft, whatever it might be, you do have to consider the human. You should, or else bad outcomes can happen. If you have to have the right mix of technology with what the human can do, and try to augment what the human capabilities are with technology and so on. So I think if you're designing something that a human is going to work with, then I think you need to consider the human factors part of that. Someone on the team does, for sure.
For sure.
I think.
Similarly, you're this gregarious guy, and you have a good personality. It's taken you very far. You're an ambassador for NASA. And you mentioned in one of your books, I forget which one, you were saying they would team you up with people who are more, the antithesis of that, whatever that is. So do you think that's a good strategy as far as team building, like HR personnel, if they're matching people together, have a, like a outspoken person and then a more timid person?
I think it's good. I think, first of all, I think you have to have good people no matter what. I think whether you're outgoing or quiet or whatever, I think having people that have integrity and can be team players and put the mission first, I think those are what you're really looking for. And, some people might rub somebody else the wrong way, but I always felt like as long as the person I was working with cared about what we were doing, I was fine. And you're going to get along more with some people than others. But as far as putting a team together, I think it's good to have a mix of backgrounds and perspectives on it. If everyone thinks the same way, my friend Alan Bean, I mentioned him in the talk. One of the things he also told me is that if everyone thinks the same way, you're never going to solve any major problems. Wouldn't go to the moon or build a space station or fix Hubble or do anything what you're doing at ManageEngine. If everyone thinks the same way, you're not going to get anywhere. So you need people that think differently. It might create some friction once in a while, but care for and admire everyone on your team and be respectful, and you can get through it. I think I did have one. Michel Tognini, who's a French astronaut, had flown in space years earlier and was now getting ready for another shuttle flight. And he and I were working on a project together, and I hadn't flown in space yet. And he said, "Tell me about he construct the crew." And he goes, "It's always good to have one funny guy." He said, I don't know if he was trying to encourage me, but he said, "But you don't want two, Mike, on a crew. Because then it gets out of control. It's like having a gang, But one funny guy, right. It's good to have one funny guy."
Yeah. I noticed you pointed out like using humor as a leadership tool. You have like an anecdote you could share?
Yeah, we went through leadership training with NASA, which was kind of interesting. We did it with a few different entities. We did it with the National Outdoor Leadership School, and we also did it with the Canadian Army, had this cold weather course. And there were other courses you could go through. And what you did is you took turns being the leader. And what I found is that sometimes when I did this one cold weather course with the Canadian Army, it was my first experience doing one of these things. And the chief of the astronaut office, a colonel in the Air Force, who was our leader, and flown in space many times as a commander, Charlie Precourt. And there were other people I was the most junior person there. And it was my turn to be the leader. And, I just kind of did my best. And my natural way of approaching things is maybe to try to keep it lighthearted. And the result was what was told to, and they kind of evaluate how you did at the end. And they said how, being if you're using humor, if it's natural for you to do that and you don't have to try to be funny, but it's just the way you look at life, then it can be an asset. But other things can be an asset too. It's just whatever your personality is. And there's not really one personality type that makes a great leader. Right. There are different types, and everyone can be, I think, an effective leader, but you have to be comfortable with who you are and use those attributes that you have and say, well, I'm not going to be, General Patton, that's not going to work for me. If I try to emulate that, that's a problem. Sure. But communication is really important, and keeping the team together and being respectful of everyone and considering everyone is important.
Right.
And then I think using whatever attributes you might have, and if humor is one of them, I think it can work out. Yeah.
Another thing you talk about that I think we can all relate to, and it's very modest of you to even bring this up, is impostor syndrome. Whichever is like, I guess what advice do you have for folks who are going through that? Or
I think it's okay. I think it shows you're human. I worry about the people that don't have it, and it's, I'm the greatest person ever. I deserve to be here, and then you have trouble. Yes. That's when you have trouble. But I think it's okay to feel like, well, do I really deserve to be here? And use it as a way that you're grateful for the opportunity. Right. Don't let it, try not to let it prevent you from trying things. I think that's where it runs into trouble. So I've been in all kinds of situations where I really felt I was beyond my comfort zone, but I think that's a good thing. So I think most good people that I've noticed occasionally will think that way, but won't let it stop them from pursuing what they need to be doing. So don't let it prevent you from doing what you need to do, but understand it just shows that you're a humble person, I think.
Yeah. Another thing you talk about, switching gears here a little bit, is going slow to speed up.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of,
counterintuitive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you explain that mantra?
Yeah. What we found in doing things is that, that if you're trying to go fast, you might skip something or miss something or do something you regret. And there really were very few things that we needed to do that required an immediate response. And those are the things you want to have top of mind. We would call those bold-faced procedures. Like you have an engine fire.
Right.
Yeah. You're going to have to, if the fire light comes on, you put the engine, you throttle to idle. If the engine, the fire light's still on, throttle off. It's a long time ago. It's 20 years later. I'm still remembering. Right. So maybe not that long, 10 years. Throttle off. If the fire's confirmed, eject. That's like quick.
Yeah.
Because you're on fire. You don't have, you literally, your airplane's on fire. So you don't have much time to figure that one out. But most of the other stuff that we'd have, whether it's in the airplane or spacewalking especially, was, you just take your time, and you actually will end up going faster. It's like slow and steady wins the race. And if you're rushing, you're going to maybe do something without realizing you've done something incorrectly. Right. Particularly with spacewalking. You can launch yourself, and that's not good, or you could miss something. So it's better to, not, staying still, don't just, I'm out there, you have to do something, but just do it, movement with purpose. Don't rush, like, was it rush, but don't, or go, be quick, but don't hurry, that kind of thing, try to remain in control, and don't get overexcited where you start missing things and going too fast, and then you'll have to backtrack.
Just talking about technology and the importance of keeping humans in the loop, and obviously we're granting a lot of power now to AI and different technologies. In one of your books, I think it was Spaceman, you said, as incredible as the shuttle and the station and the Mars rovers are, the most valuable piece of equipment you can have in space is a person. So you still talked about how we're always going to need humans. This is kind of a 4-part question. Feel free to answer any or whatever you want. But will we always need humans to do work, space work, and work on the ground? Or do you think we're ascribing too much importance to AI right now? And what ramifications for society do you foresee? Basically, are we giving too much power to these new technologies?
I think we need to be careful about it and not lose the value that humans can add. I mean, I teach this at Columbia, where we're trying to figure out the problems are that we discuss, or what are people good at and what are machines good at. And that's really evolved over the years now with AI, but there are certain things that AI can do that it's just great, right? But there's things where it misses. It's not so good yet anyway. So I think we need to keep awareness of that. But I really, it's coming, and it's it can be used as a tool to help us, or you can resist it and be overwhelmed. And so I think it's important for us to try to accept it as best we can. There's going to be pitfalls. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to probably create problems and maybe even tragedies from time to time. Yeah. And we're going to have to rethink those things. But I think we need to accept that it's here and figure out ways we can use it for our benefit.
Do you see many parallels between the IT security world and spaceflight?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, as ManageEngine has educated in me in our preparation for the talk, I think there are, that there are, you may do things that sometimes like, well, this might be not great, but it's worked out so far and no one's caught it, or so we think it's all right. And I think that can happen. I think it's somewhat in human nature, it's, we're getting away with it now. I shouldn't say it that way, but it hasn't caused a problem yet. So maybe it's okay, but that doesn't mean it's all right.
Yeah.
I remember the lawyers used to warn us about being really careful about
the lawyers.
The lawyers at NASA. We had there was a lot of rules about what we could and couldn't do. We couldn't accept gifts. We couldn't profit, and be really careful. If someone wants to buy you a meal, the answer is no. If someone wants to give you a gift, it's okay now, folks. I can accept gifts now. But when you were at the government, you couldn't do it. You couldn't profit from your position with the government, right? And so, and sometimes, it would be like, was it this all right? Or is our, as a friend, and they would describe it as, you don't want to be playing in the street. That's probably okay to play in the street, but every once in a while a car will come by, something bad can happen. So
right.
I think, that's kind of the way it is that when you realize, hey, I'm doing something that might not be really that great, but it's been okay before. That's when your gut is telling you something you need to pay attention to.
Right. No, that's good. So of all your lessons, you talk about the 30-second rule, all these different things you had. Two-part question again here. Which one's your personal favorite? And then which one do you think resonates mostly with, your audiences?
I kind of like all of them. I think that's why I share them.
BMAs was my favorite.
BM, really?
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's probably my favorite because it's a very positive one. The one I try to use the most is the 30-second because I make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
30 seconds of regret and try to recover from that. But that's a tough one sometimes to follow. But that's my that's what I try to follow because I make so many mistakes. But I think the care for and admire everyone on your team is important. Find a way to do that, and don't lead with a bad thought when you need to talk to someone. Lead with a good thought from your bank of good thoughts on that person.
Any good thoughts, right?
So I think all these things are I think helpful.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the be amazed is a good one, I think, because it's a very positive one. Be amazed by our surroundings every day.
It was outstanding. And then you talk at one point, which really resonated with me as well, about, don't try to control the things that are outside of your control.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age, right?
Yeah, there are certain things we just can't control, It's another lesson from Alan Bean, actually. He said how, you can look at your day, as an astronaut, and you can say, well, should I be worried about NASA's budget? And no, because you really have no control of another. Should I worry about this policy or that? It's like, no. He goes, but how about going for a T-38 ride or taking an extra simulator session?
Nice.
Think about what your job is and concentrate on that.
Very cool. So another thing that I thought was interesting about you is you're able to do your best when you're challenged. And if something came easy to you, you probably wouldn't excel at it because of the fact that it can be easy to you. Do you think you're an anomaly in that regard, or do you think that's kind of a universal human trait?
I don't know, but I think it's one you got to be careful of because, it's okay to do things that, that come your way. If it's easier, I think it's okay too. Yeah. But I don't know. I think you described it well, though. It's kind of like, it just seems like sometimes I feel like my comfort zone is when things are hard. And if it's too easy, I don't trust it or something.
Yeah. Well,
it's serves me well. I guess it's just been a lot of things have been tough for me, I guess, or it's perceived it that way. But, sometimes, yes, it's, when you see it as a challenge, you really dig in and try to see what you can do to overcome it. And, I think that's probably a good thing, but it's okay for things to be easy every once in a while too, I think.
Okay. I respect that.
Yeah.
So since we have
but I do think you want things that are hard in general. Why do you want to do things? I had a friend of mine who's Tim Jarvis, who's a polar explorer, and done some amazing things, climbed like all the highest mountains. So, and he talks about why he's put himself in some really tough situations. And he says, I've heard him speak to students, and he says, because it's hard. You want to be doing hard things. You want to challenge yourself. You don't want to be sitting back and being cushy. You want to look for things that are going to challenge you and get you outside of your comfort zone.
Right.
So I think that makes life interesting.
Very cool. Just circling back a little bit, because we have a little bit more time. You say, any successful individual or organization has to put systems in place to prevent mistakes from happening and have systems in place to deal with them if they do happen, because they inevitably will. Even with NASA, you say the weakest link is usually the human factor, the astronaut or engineer who can't get out of their own head because they're dealing with their own issues. This is something we talk about a lot in IT security with social engineering, the humans being like the weakest link in the security equation. You still think that in regard to safety in aerospace, is the human the weakest link? I guess it's a question related to technology and humans and back to AI.
Yeah, I think yes and no. I think that we can sometimes create problems, but we also can solve them. And I think it's what I teach at Columbia is you can look at an accident and say it's human error, but if you really look at it, that person was set up for failure. Sometimes it's whatever it is. Sometimes humans get distracted. They lose situational awareness. The airplane's headed toward a mountain and they're working on a light bulb problem, and it's a bad outcome. But there's usually things that could have been put in place to prevent that. So whether it's an emergency warning or you look back at it and the human missed it, but was that person set up? When that perfect storm happens, and all these things that aren't supposed to happen at the same time, that's a dangerous brew of things and can lead to something bad happening. So I would say, if you as an engineer though, or software engineer, whatever it might be, realize that people do have their limitations and try to prevent those bad things from happening. So I think it's important to realize that, humans can get tired, humans can get bored, they can lose their vigilance, and so you have to allow for that and try to help them so that bad things don't happen, and help them with technology so bad things don't happen.
All right, I'll throw a fun one at you. The Right Stuff, you bring it up all the time.
My favorite movie.
And you like the Tom Wolfe book as well.
And book, yes.
Yeah. Did you learn some life lessons from the movie or the book, or?
I think my favorite scene from the Right Stuff is there's a scene where John Glenn is about ready to go to his flight gets delayed, and he gets pulled out of his spaceship, and President Johnson is he's vice president at the time. At this point, President Kennedy was still alive, and he wants to have John Glenn's wife on TV, and she doesn't want to do it, and he backs up his wife, says, "I don't have a problem with your wife, President, vice president." And he gets on the phone. His wife says, "I don't want to call on television with the vice president." She had a speech pathology issue, and she didn't want to do it, and so he said, "No, you don't have to do it." I think, I'm not really, that's a movie version of it. So, but I think that what happens is then the NASA guy says, "Oh, you can't do that." And this is the vice president of the United States, and he says, more or less, "Oh, yes, I can." Who are you? And then the guy says, "I'm thinking of changing the flight assignments." And his friends, one of the characters was, I think it was maybe the Deke Slayton character, says, "Oh yeah, who you gonna get?"
Right.
Like, we're gonna stick together on this deal.
Yeah.
And that was the scene in the movie I remember the most. That, and along with John Glenn in orbit looking out the window, I thought that was kind of cool, like looking at the Earth from up there, make those observations. But I think the idea that you're going to be part of a team where you're really going to stick by each other,
right? And
you're not out for yourself. You're there for the team. And you build those relationships where you care so much about each other that you're gonna whatever happens, you're gonna be there for each other. You're not gonna step on the other person. You're not gonna look for your opportunity versus theirs. But I love that. Who you gonna get? No, you ain't gonna get one of us. You're out of luck, pal. Because we're sticking together on this deal. So that's that's my favorite scene.
Nice.
It's my favorite lesson from the movie.
I agree with you too that the myth of the self-made man is inherently American, and it's a fallacy, right? Like,
I think large way it is. I think like there are people who start out with nothing and go to greatness, but they got help along the way. You know, they did. And you can talk about whoever you want to talk about. They got a lot of help, and they had right people who, and they accepted the help. Sometimes it's hard for us to accept help.
Sure.
But they were able to get help and build teams, and you can't do it. You can't do it alone. So,
right.
You know, not in today's world, and I don't think any time you could do it.
Yeah.
People may try to take credit for everything, but the truth of it is there's a lot of people that got them where they are.
Awesome. Another thing I loved is your quote that there are very few jerks who have made it to space. I guess that's not really a question.
I would say,
here to comment, I guess.
As far as the NASA, I can't comment on everybody that's gone to space, but from the NASA and the international astronauts that I worked with, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I've run out of questions here, Mike.
Would you have that wasn't a question?
No.
Oh, is this a comment?
Well, no.
I think what it is, really what it comes down to with our selection that we had, they really took the time to get to know people. And it was, when I was coaching basketball, and one of the other coaches said to me, this guy, Bill Wold, he said, I was new at it. You know, we're going into the draft. This is serious, you know, little kid, 8-year-old basketball. We're going to have this draft. And he said, Mike, he goes, I try to remember. I go, what's that? He says, draft better, teach less. You know, I think that's really good. You pick the right people, and you put a lot of time into selection, and you get good people. And that really is the one element. Get good people who are just good people who have good ethics and are honest and are willing to work hard and put the team above them. And then your job is easy, because all the other stuff's easy. You know, learn how to fly a spaceship, or, you know, whatever you need to do to work a spacesuit. Most people can do that, I think, with a decent technical background, good, strong technical background. But it's finding out who you're able to work with, who's going to persevere, who's going to be that person that has your back. You know, who are you going to want to be training with and to be working with? Right. I think those are the things that are actually more important.
Well, that's great. Awesome. Well, Mike, thank you so much.
You bet.
For taking the time and coming on the ManageEngine Insights.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been great. I hope you
Pleasure meeting you, John.
That brings us to the end of today's podcast. A big thank you to Mike for coming, and thank you all for listening. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section, and we'll be sure to get back to you. And please stay tuned for our next installment.